Welcome back, everybody. Season 2 of the First Youth Podcast. It's a place where we talk about themes and topics relating to teens and their parents.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today, Kyle?
Today we're going to talk about something that we hear pretty consistently from all types of parents. From parents that you might think are doing a bad job, and then parents who love church. And just, I mean, if you have teenagers, there's going to come a point when you have this question in your life. My parents went through this question, and I ended up helping lead the church. So it's all over the place with all different kinds of parents. And it's what do I do when my teenager doesn't want to go to church? And I think there's a lot of, okay, one time or all the time. And so we'll bounce around on a couple of those things. And you found a great article that we'll actually hit when it's solution time.
Yeah.
So that'd be
from
good.
growingfaith.com. We'll put the link in the article notes. But let's jump into a little bit behind what's going on. Why doesn't the teen maybe want to come? All those things. Let's jump into that.
Well, that and what does it mean? When you mean your teen is having a hard time getting to church, is it like there's bad traffic? Like, nobody means that. It's not difficult physically to get to church. There's some sort of blockage that's stopping them. So my question is, what is it that they're struggling with? It's not just random. There's something going on. It's the same thing with school. When the kids don't want to go to school, is there a bully? Is homework hard? Is the teacher? Whatever, blah, blah, blah. There's something behind that. And so the first one there I thought is, what is it that they're struggling with? Is it a lack of friends? The one time I remember very specifically saying, no one's there. And my dad goes, there's 60 people there tonight. There's going to be somebody there. Well, my friends aren't there. Okay, now there's something to deal with.
Those 3 people aren't there.
Right.
Therefore, everybody I care about at church doesn't happen to be there tonight.
And that's everyone.
Yeah.
That's my circle. That's who I want. So sometimes it's a lack of friends. Sometimes it's nervous. I was thinking about how we have the gym here, and then there's foyers, and no matter where you come in, they're loud. And sometimes that throws a kid off when they come in. I'm nervous about walking into an environment where there's a lot going on, which, all those are understandable. But yeah, some of those things are just very surface level things that you can actually help them grow through. And I think you could probably solve some of that. And, there's deeper things, but this is a real surfacey one, which is easy side of it, which is just, just have a conversation. What is it that's stopping you? And sometimes it's just younger, they're 6th grade and they're nervous about coming in. That's something you can handle as a parent and help guide them through.
I think also one of the difficulties with this specific question, or why does it come up with parents, is because maybe their teen liked going to church. They loved it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, there's just this shift, and they're struggling. It's really not the teens as much struggling as much as the parents are struggling to get them to go, or they're struggling to see that motivation, and that's scary because we connect church attendance with spirituality.
Sure.
So it's my teen not did they not love the Lord?
Well, and
did
then
they not love church anymore? What's going on?
And that's that value question, and it goes towards attendance. So does attendance matter? So if they're not showing up, and I think that scares some parents. If they stop coming, maybe they're going to stop coming forever. And then as you're trying to cover for your kid because you love them, you go, well, how much does attendance matter? If they're there once a month, is that enough? And for a lot of families, I mean, we read all those polls and all those Barna research and stuff. Most people are going to church less than twice a month. That's most people. And so for teenagers too, if you start packing in, they're going Sunday mornings and then they're going Wednesday nights. We've got life groups on Sunday nights. What's the big deal if they miss? I've heard 2 things that I think are pertinent to this conversation. I wrote both of them down. You're committed to what you're devoted to, which sounds like a lot of jargon, but whatever I value, I go to. So if I'm, my kids have sports, I show up to that game. I'm not committed so much to going to see that sport. Reagan does field hockey. I don't care that much, but her I'm devoted to, and so I go to see that kind of a thing.
Right.
So with church, it's the same thing. If you value it, you're going to be there. You commit to being there because you're devoted to it. And the second one I put down was what you show up to is an indicator, not a qualifier. So it indicates what you care about. It doesn't qualify. I could show up to my kids' games, but that doesn't qualify me as a good dad. I could be a horrible dad who just happens to show up. In fact, we've all been to Little League games, and we've seen some horrible parents saying some things they should never have said. It doesn't make them a good parent that they're there, but it just, it
indicates something. It's a flag. So it's not the end all, but at the end of the day, still is important.
Yeah.
Well, there should be value placed on it.
And that's why they bring it up when it doesn't happen. Like, hey, they're not coming. It's flag. That's good. Yeah. You should be worried about it. You should be thinking about it.
But you don't want to panic at the same time.
No.
So, thinking through, the biggest question of all is, should we force them to go, right?
Because
that's really what parents want to know. Hey, should I Get them in the car, no matter what, kicking and screaming. We're going to church this morning, even if it ruins the day.
They were to Mom the other night, right? She's, I can't pick him up and put him in the car.
Yeah, he's getting bigger than me now. Yeah, I used to be able to do it.
Now I can't.
And qualifying the differences between a middle school student and a high school student too. When they're 13, you really can say, hey, buddy, get in the car.
Yes.
When they're 19, 20, it gets a little more difficult. They are young adults at that point, and they really culture expects them to be.
Yeah.
The culture says, you need to have these things figured out in your life. So they want to be treated like adults.
For sure.
Right? But at the same time, they're still your kids.
But right there is you don't want to have to force them at 19. If you have to force them to go at 19 or even 16 when they're starting to drive, just beyond that phase when they're starting to figure out whether or not they value things or whatever, when they start making their own choices, you've got a bigger problem if now you have to force them. So my question on that is always, why do you have to force them? And this is different than, well, they're nervous about the environment. What is it that you're forcing them into? To value God? Like, my friends aren't there. You got to force me to go. I get over it. I grow up. Church is early in the morning on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff. But if it lingers in, like, I'm 18 and I'm starting to make my own choices and I don't want to go, now it's a bigger issue. Now it's you can't. So yeah, you want to try to get this before they're 18.
One of the things we often talk about is how much teens really catch things.
Yeah.
And more is caught than taught. And I think with this, kind of your family dynamic, the things that are important to your family, really is caught. And you don't always see in those teen years. Sometimes there's years in middle school, high school, where they're not necessarily on board with those things.
Yeah.
The things that the family values. Hey, these are the pillars of our family. But what we see often is later on in their young adult years, when they have kids of their own, all of a sudden they have those same values. So sometimes you can't freak out.
No.
But at the end of the day, what do I do? What do I do with that teen who's really struggling to be at church?
Now, and this is, we've kind of bounced this around back and forth. It comes down to a per teen basis. You can't just say, yes, force all the teens all the time to all go to church. It's case by case. But for me, I know I've always thought about this. If you're throwing up, in the morning and, I just saw it, it's like part of me, and this is kind of how I was raised, was like, oh, you threw up. You feel better? Good. Let's go to church. You go to, let's go. Like, everybody in this house goes. I didn't have an option. I didn't care if I was tired. Be tired in church. But, it depends on, again, I don't know. It depends on the attitude. It really does. If they're sometimes they're trying to win a battle with you. Who's the big dog here? Who gets to decide I go to church? Sometimes that's a moment of going, you're going. Like, not for church, but for our family dynamic, you are going. I can't think of outside of, like, sickness or, I don't know. I was about to go into some things, but it's case by case.
There's probably only a couple things in your family that you're going to put your foot down and say,
sure,
hey, at the end of the day, as for me and my house, this is we act this way. Yep. We talk to each other this way, or we don't talk to each other this way. We attend church. Maybe that's your family. You're saying, that's
I just
gonna
don't
be my
feel
thing.
like it is out of bounds.
Right.
I'm sick. Okay, I'm being a tough guy, but you're sick. It's fine. But I just don't feel like it is never acceptable. That would be in my house. I don't feel like it tonight. That stinks. Let's go. Right? I mean, like, come on. Like, that's what we value. Like, I don't feel like coming to dinner tonight. That's unacceptable in my house. You're at least going to – I can't move your head and chew the food for you, but you're going to at least sit with us. So, anyways, forcing them, it's case by case.
Case by case. You want to jump into some of the solutions we see in this article?
Yeah.
Maybe not the word solutions, but as we talked and we discussed kind of what are some helpful things we could tell parents from our experience in youth ministry. Most of them lined up completely with this article, which is pretty neat. So why don't we just shoot through the main points here and we can discuss as we go. The first one they have is, hey, pause, okay? Don't panic.
Yep. Because
your teen doesn't want to go to church, that doesn't mean that they don't know Jesus as their Savior. It doesn't mean that they'll end up homeless someday and they're going to get pregnant at 13. Like, that doesn't mean those things. They might just be going through a difficult moment of their life, and it may have nothing to do with church.
Right. That's exactly right. Sometimes
you got to zoom out.
We put moral things into things that just absolutely aren't moral.
Exactly.
I was talking to Pastor John Adams, and he was saying that he was listening to a guy talking about being a parent. He goes, I think my kids told me things more than even I wanted to hear because I didn't get too high, I didn't get too low. They told me something, I didn't freak out. Sometimes we shut the door when they left, and we were like, what? You know,
Yeah.
but right in front of them, I didn't do that. So like, I don't feel like going to church tonight. You could spend 15 minutes freaking out, but good luck getting them to open up to you about that again. Or maybe right after that, why? After you freak out for 15 minutes, well, why don't you want to go? It's like, well, I'm going to tell you now. As soon as I tell you, you're going to freak out some more. So I like that one.
And doesn't that just translate into every situation? Every topic we're talking about, it's creating that environment in your home where there's transparency, where your kids, they feel welcome to talk about these topics. And yeah, it might be serious, but maybe you need a moment just to think about it and dwell upon it and then say, okay, well, why? Instead of, no, you're going to church right away. Then they don't feel like they want to talk to you anymore.
Well, and it's, as a teen thing, you're coaching. You're less of a cop. You're less of, here's the rules. You're coaching. It's like, okay, when you go out to play, when you go do your thing, think about this. So I like that. Don't panic, pray. Stop right there. Oh, Lord, this scares me.
Yeah.
God, this scares me. I don't like to hear this. Help me. Help me not be afraid. Help me say the right things. Help me find out why. Help them to be open to me. On and on.
And we jump to solutions, but you know, in Christian culture, we want solutions that we can find on Google.
And
we want
can
solutions.
Control.
We can control them.
Yeah.
And we say pray, and we say, oh, yeah, I believe in prayer.
Yeah.
But do we?
Right. Before we go to solutions.
If priorities, and we have these lists of priorities in our life, and for some, church is a priority.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, your actual priorities are the things you prioritize.
Sure.
That's the reality. And if you're saying, hey, I value prayer and I believe it works.
Yeah.
Prioritize prayer in that moment.
You put your time and energy
Before
into prayer,
you freak
you'll
out.
see it. You'll see whether or not you do. No, I'm with that. I like that one.
It's something for all of us to consider. Number 2, understand why. This is huge. And it starts with asking the question.
I say that like I didn't see it. I saw a little bit of it. I just didn't read this thing. So when you're reading it, I just didn't read it. So I don't know. So keep going. Sorry.
Understand why they don't want to go.
Yeah.
Right? So ask them that question. Hey, what's going on? It might not be that they don't, it might not be, hey, I hate God. It might just be, I'm really tired tonight, or I had a long week of school, or maybe it's something as simple as, I don't know, there's an issue with a friend at church.
Yeah, sometimes it's not what's going on there. It's I don't want to not be at church. I just really want to be somewhere else.
That too.
I like that. It's fine. Church is great, but I just want to do that tonight. So, and again, and that's not, I hate God. I want to go worship Satan. I love God. I just also want to get in the car with my friends and go see that movie or football game or whatever it is.
So it's clarifying what's really going on.
I understand why. It's a good point.
Number 3, they say, remember you're in the middle of a power changeover. So in other words, there's this maturity happening, and they go from an 11 or 12-year-old who really have to listen to everything mom and dad say to a senior or junior in high school where they're starting to need to make their own decisions, and you got to walk that with them. You can't just come down hard every time. We want to coach them through those moments and help them understand how to make those decisions on their own. Eventually, guess what? They'll be a college student. Nobody's waking them up in the morning saying go to church.
Yep.
Right? So we want to help work them through that and maybe instill into them why some of those things are important.
Yeah, and they're not, and this whole, and this is probably some tangent we don't need to go into, but, they go to college and then their faith falls apart. Maybe they didn't have as much as you thought they did before. They were an upstanding Christian and then they fell apart. Maybe they were just riding mom and dad's faith for a long time, or grandmom and granddad's faith for a long time, and they just never made their decisions. That kind of conversation. Remember, you're in the middle of a power changeover. It's true. They're going to have more power over their lives. I do. My parents don't wake me up for church anymore. It's my job. But it's the power of me to do those things.
In some ways, an interesting perspective would be maybe this is a blessing.
Sure.
And here's what I mean by that. Maybe now my student has an opportunity to really decide for themselves, is this important to my faith?
Which is what you want anyway.
Right. Eventually, they're going to have to make that decision. Yep. So maybe don't look at this as this is the worst case scenario that's ever happened in our family. Our family's falling apart. This could give you an opportunity to have those conversations before they're on their own, before they're at college, before they're adults, and work through some of those things at an earlier stage while they have your guidance.
Well, and they're in the house. You want to have this conversation now, or would you rather have it when they're 23 away from the home and you're going, why, you haven't been going to church? Why not? Like,
right.
I didn't really want to tell you when I was 17, but now I'm out of the house. I'll tell you. It's like, well, deal with it now. Help later.
Number 4, they say tread gently, and basically this is your approach. Right?
Yeah.
You want to come at it. Don't fight pride with pride.
Yeah.
If you're gonna put your foot down and this is what our family's doing, and you're going no matter what. You don't get me wrong. There's a time for that in the family. But the way you talk to them might shut them down in the future. The way you communicate, I think that's very important.
Well, church being, it's saying it here, but they're going into relationship. The word's really community, right? So they're saying giving church or youth groups about relationships. It's about community. It's community that comes together because we're called out to be a special gathering centered around Jesus. So, you're forced to be a part of a community. It doesn't really work that way. You either are a part of it or not by your actions and, whether you're a member of that. So if we're baptized into the family of Jesus Christ, you're a part of it. It's just growing there. But yes, you got to tread gently. I like how they put that. Gently. You might have to put your foot down, but tread gently as you do that. I like it.
Number 5, look for other relationships that will help. This is something we said right away. Find an adult, find someone who loves your kid, or who you just have a really good relationship with. Recruit them to pray, and then say, hey, would you reach out to my kid? They're struggling right now. They really don't want to be at church. Maybe you could discreetly shoot them a text or in passing just say, hey, we missed you. Not in a judgmental way, like, hey, where you been? Right? That might shut them off even more. But I've had this happen to me. People call me, hey, we didn't see you last week. We really missed you.
In a loving tone, that's powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man, they missed
I've been
me.
missed.
Yeah, that is a powerful thing. But we just had somebody else. We were in the lobby for kids' church, and they said, "Do you know anybody this age, this gender, at this school that would reach out to them?" Man, that for one, another teen reaching out is super powerful because it's just that peer relationship holds so much sway over their life. Even if it is an adult, it's a third party coming in and saying, wow, okay, so I respect that person, and they value it just like my parents do. And for whatever reason, they say it once, mom and dad say it a million times, doesn't mean the same. Get used to it. Them saying it. So find somebody that'll echo. I mean, that's what we do with the life groups. People that echo the same beliefs and values of the church, saying it over to kids, that they've heard
By the way,
before.
shameless plug for life groups right now, right?
Got no problem.
Get
with
your
that.
teen in a life group.
Oh, for sure.
We brought up one or two situations where literally a life group leader did that for a teen.
Yeah.
Something even happened this week. I heard a story of a life group leader saying, hey, I've noticed this student hasn't been around. I reached out to them, and guess what? They were back the next week, through prayer and through recruiting those people.
We had a small group leader, 2 years ago now, lived close to the teen who really couldn't get there because his parents weren't around church. And so he said, well, I'll drive you there, and then I'll drop you off. And I was like, there you go. And he's still here. Yeah, he's around. So that's
that partnership between parents and that small group leader is huge. So reach out. If your student is struggling, reach out to their leader or get them in a life group, right?
Get them in that.
Number 6, remember that the job of Jesus is already taken. That's good to remember. Like, we can't make them decide these things. We can't instill belief or faith into them.
Right.
I mean, that has to be their relationship between the Lord.
Yeah, you can force them to do a lot of things. You can't force them to have a relationship. You can force attendance. You can force family devotions. You can force, we're all getting in this car, but the job of Jesus is already taken. And he does a much better job at being Jesus than we do.
Amen.
So you're really praying more on that account than the indicator of attendance.
Yeah,
that's good.
Absolutely. And the last one, never give up, they say.
Yeah.
And that's key. How many times do we hear stories? I think of my next door neighbor growing up, and this woman prayed for her husband to accept Christ for years.
Yeah.
I mean, my entire life.
Yeah.
And later in life, he came to know the Lord, and she just never gave up. How many times in Scripture does Jesus tell a parable or a story of someone who's just persistent and they don't give up?
And it's not a waste. Isaiah 55:11. I said it this Wednesday night, actually. I said, you're doing something valuable, talking about God at all times. We were talking about evangelism, but it's here too. In youth group, in Sunday morning, or whatever you're forcing them to go to, whatever, when they're sitting under the Word of God being preached, it's effective. It's valuable, even if it's cumulative. Maybe not one Wednesday night or one Sunday morning or one Sunday night, but many of them put together. It's it's being shaped. So if they're saved and it's hard, they're being shaped. If they're not and they're half listening, that might be just the influence of Christ on them. But here, them sitting at home and happy is worse than them sitting at church miserable listening to the Word of God. So you got to take your lumps, and that's a hard thing to say to parents. But being one, I know what that feels like. So yeah,
as we wrap this up, what are some of our maybe final thoughts we'd say from a pastoral perspective? things that we've experienced and things we want to tell parents.
Oh, man. Okay, so one, we really have to, don't take it away as punishment. You're not going to church now. And parents, and I get what they're saying. They're saying they love it so much. They love it so much that it has such power over them. If you don't do this, you are not going. I have caught myself with my kids going to school saying, if you don't do your homework, I don't know if you can go to church tonight. So they're going, what are we doing? Like take something else away. Take away anything that they just, you're going to hold them back from being around other believers, hearing about God, singing and celebrating God. No, that, as I'm describing it now, it almost sounds wrong. Like I'm keeping them from out.
And when you think about it, man, they have a terrible attitude. We're going to take youth group away from them or church away from them. Okay, if they're having a bad attitude, don't you want them to be under the word of God that can change their heart? So I understand why parents do it. It's because my kid loves it.
Yep.
And, I need to take something away.
I can shoehorn that to get them to do what they want to do.
Find something else. Find something else.
Anything else.
That's just from our perspective.
Take dinner away. Two, and careful here, Kyle, but two is reasons they might not come or be attached to it is because of what you're doing. More's caught than taught.
Yeah.
And so one, maybe, and I can just tell with certain teens, and you can sense from them and stuff, is mom and dad are just talking about church at home in a bad way. So if you're bad-mouthed church, you're going, I don't know why they're doing that, or, I'm not really going to that or anything, that is going to be induced in your kid. They can't walk out of the house without feeling that. So if you're constantly, I don't know, church is kind of, and you got this attitude, maybe it's not even bad-mouthed, and it's just kind of like, I don't know if I really care. They're going to hold on to that. So look at your speech. I'm careful about the way I talk about their teachers, their coaches, other pastors, leaders of church, everything, because they'll just keep that, even if they can't articulate it later, carry that into the relationship. So be careful with your words. And I really want them to be a part of Wednesday nights, but you don't do anything else. And I'm not calling for attendance because we're not, I don't get a bigger paycheck if more people attend or adults attend. But if you're not attending other things and you're not interested, you can't count on them to be interested in things. It just doesn't work that way. You've got to be the example. More's caught than taught. It's a powerful move.
Absolutely.
So
as we wrap this up, kind of final thoughts. I guess I'd say don't panic.
That's a good one to remember. Just
pause. Don't panic. Have a word of prayer.
Yeah.
God, I am. I'm scared in this moment. My teen is not where I want them to be. Have that conversation with your kid. We said this before. Yeah. Sometimes just expressing the things that are important to you.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? It'd be really important to me, if you came to church. I know it's not something you're really into right now, but it's really important to mom. It's really important to dad. Like, it's just something that we value.
Your younger brother, sister's watching.
Absolutely.
We care about this. You got to come.
Yeah. And if that relationship is there, or you've built trust in that relationship, they more than likely will be willing to go because they love you, even though they're not into church in that moment. So don't freak out. Pray about that. Have that conversation.
Yeah.
Reach out to somebody or a mass of people that you want to pray for them, and reach out to them. Yeah. And then leave it up to the Lord.
Yeah. So and all that will be available in the show notes. I think we're going to put the article right below it.
Yep.
So, okay.
Well, thanks again for joining us at the First Use Podcast. We'll see you next time.